Time now for a Talk exclusive here on Talk Drive, and if you want to react to this, 0344 499 1000 is the number. This is a story that our people behind the scenes have put together, and this is about a Woke University offering segregated swimming lessons for black students in the name of unity. This is the University of Leicester. It's advertising swimming lessons in an inclusive environment, despite it only being accessible to black students who have had limited or no access to pools. The poster appears to be stuck on an official university notice board, stating that on Wednesdays between 6 and 7, the entire pool, sauna and spa area will be exclusively reserved for black people for the session. One social media user described the move as going from multiculturalism to apartheid, discrimination and division sold as inclusivity. I don't know about you, but a lot of what I did at university, which wasn't Leicester, it was elsewhere, was studying about the civil rights issues in the 1960s in America. And part of the problem was that black people had segregated swimming pools, had segregated water fountains, for example, had segregated toilets. But now the University of Leicester is apparently bringing this back. A 2022 report by Swim England finds that only that 14% of white communities cannot swim 25 metres in comparison to 49% of ethnically diverse communities. But according to Swimming Nature, 1 in 3 of all adults in the UK can't swim one length of a 25-metre pool. 50% of children from low-income families can swim a length of a pool unaided. University of Leicester spokesperson said, according to Sport England research conducted in 2022, it was found that 95% of black adults and 93% of Asian adults in the UK do not swim. The university is keen to tackle this issue and make sure all student communities are encouraged to try swimming in our pools. This initiative, held with the local organisation Unity Swimming, aims to address this underrepresentation and was actually something our student population had asked for. Therefore, these sessions have been marketed towards our black students, they're capitalising the word black there, to try and encourage them to try out swimming in a supportive environment. The sessions are for 1 hour on a weekly basis in 1 or of 2 of our sports centres. So this is the university offering segregated swimming lessons for black students in the name of unity. Dr. Rakib Ehsan is a political commentator. Rakib, are we going back to the 1960s here?
Well, I think that it's a clear case of neo-segregation, in my view. I don't consider this to be a particularly inclusive initiative. The idea that you have swimming lessons at a university which is racially exclusive in the sense that only black people would participate in the swimming lessons. But I think that what was really interesting there is the kind of stats that you raised, that actually a lot of this is actually a class issue. That many people from low-income backgrounds who perhaps live in parts of the country where there's not particularly good access to those swimming facilities.
Or it's just expensive.
Exactly, or the fact that you'd have to pay a relatively hefty fee to use those facilities means that there's not high rates of swimming-related activity in those relatively deprived communities. And I think the statistics said there that 1 in 3 UK adults can't swim an entire length, which is a lot of people. That would be a great proportion of the white British mainstream. So I think that it's a real shame that swimming and, to be honest, all kinds of sporting activities which can bring different communities together would be used in such a way which, in my view, is deeply exclusionary.
When they have 95% of black adults who can't swim, is this perhaps behind this, saying, well, actually, you might feel more comfortable learning to swim with people of your own race, and maybe that's an idea to do it? I mean, it's interesting that on this notice here that we're putting on the screen at the moment, we'll read it out for the majority of people who are listening on the radio. Unity Swim provides tailored swimming lessons to individuals from underrepresented communities who may have had limited or no access to swimming and other sports experiences. These lessons specifically support our black, capitalised B, students, offering them an opportunity to develop a valuable life-saving skill in a safe, inclusive environment. The pool, sauna, steam room and spa will be exclusively reserved for the session during the above specified times and dates that dates cannot be accessed. So they're basically saying to other students you can't use the pool at that time. In a safe, inclusive environment. I mean, it's not inclusive if anybody's not black. And also, I mean, is it unsafe if there are people who are white or Asian there?
Well, that's the whole point. It strikes me as incredibly divisive. I would have just thought that it'd be based on ability. If you're not particularly good at swimming, Exactly, beginners essentially, irrespective of your racial or ethnic background. If you're at that sort of beginner stage, where not particularly advanced stage in terms of swimming ability, then you learn together. And I'm just really not sure why we have to go down this sort of road of racial fragmentation when it comes to trying to improve swimming ability in local communities.
When the statistics show us that actually, as you say, only 50% of children from low-income families can swim the length of the pool unaided. I mean, I'm sure it's a good idea to have beginners swimming for everybody of all races, but they're calling themselves Unity Swim. It's just not very unified, is it?
No, it's not. It doesn't strike me as a very inclusive initiative at all. And I think that just the statistics that we've been discussing just now, it suggests that there's a large proportion of the population, irrespective of ethnic and racial background, who don't have particularly high level of swimming skills.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure why we have to go down this road of racial segmentation when it comes to swimming in our local communities.
I always ask the question when there's something specifically for any community or any group of people, would you have a whites-only swimming lessons, for example? And let me tell you, that absolutely would not happen. Let me ask you about another story while you're here, Rakib.
Sure.
This is about the Metropolitan Police claiming an imam's sermon is not a crime. I just want to read you a little bit. We've been talking quite a lot about hate crimes and what is a hate crime and not a hate crime, non-crime hate incidents, quite a lot actually over the last week or so. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that coverage, and Alison Pearson. We'll talk more about that actually later in the programme with a former senior officer from the police service in Northern Ireland. This is a preacher at an East London mosque who said, "O Allah, curse the Jews and the children of Israel. O Allah, curse the infidels and the polytheists. O Allah, break their words, shake their feet, disperse and tear apart their unity and ruin their houses and destroy their homes." This was 2 weeks after the 7th of October and what happened in Israel, the Hamas terrorist attacks. The Metropolitan Police originally concluded it does not meet the threshold of a crime. But apparently, a non-crime hate incident you can have for calling someone a Rottweiler. The law's an ass, isn't it, Rakib? It just doesn't make any sense anymore.
Well, I think there are grave inconsistencies when it comes to law and order, especially in the capital. In my view, the Met Police is a failing, underperforming behemoth. I think it suffers from very serious problems. I think there's a lack of public trust in the Met. And I think when you look at the various cases which are qualified for police-related investigations into non-crime hate incidents, I'll be honest, when you look at those kind of investigations and then you see the kind of things which aren't being followed up on, it does strike me as quite inconsistent in my view.
It is completely inconsistent. In fact, Brad in Cambridge has been in touch to say, do we have a definitive answer as to why Dawn Butler didn't receive a visit from the police following her offensive racist outburst? I think he's referring to, could refer to quite a number of things that Dawn Butler have said, but what I think Brad is perhaps referring to, and Brad, get in touch again if I'm mischaracterising what you're saying here, is when she called the election of Kemi Badenoch as leader of the Conservative Party. She said Kemi Badenoch was the black face of white supremacy, and she's made similar comments in the past, as have other politicians. But Brad is asking, do we have a definitive answer as to why Dawn Butler didn't receive a visit from the police following her offensive racist outburst? It's always raised in these discussions, but nobody ever investigates why. Tell you what, Jodie's the producer of this programme. Jodie, can you ring the Metropolitan Police, please, their press office, and ask them specifically what is the answer to that question, and I'll bring it to you before 7 o'clock if we get an answer, any answer from the Metropolitan Police. But I think, Rakib, what is happening here is there is an inconsistency, as you correctly say, and people want to have faith in the police, they want to trust their institutions, but they can't because the institutions aren't giving them that equality, the word of the moment, that people want, which is an equality before the law.
No, absolutely. And I think that what they want to see is the local police forces operating in the spirit of fairness. And I think that there's a very serious problem there. And I think it really taps into those accusations of not just two-tier policing, but two-tier governance, that the law is applied in different ways depending on the ethnic, racial, or indeed religious background of the perpetrator, or indeed the victim as well. And I think that's a very serious problem. And I think that more generally, listen, Peter, I'm someone, I passionately support the cause of Palestinian statehood, sovereignty, the right to self-determination. But I think that the pro-Palestine movement suffers as a result of that aggressive anti-Semitism. And I think there needs to be more people in that movement who call that out.
You're absolutely correct, and distance themselves from that, because it's absolutely fine to make those points, which I personally disagree with, but that's not the point. The point is you make them reasonably and peacefully without supporting terrorism. Fascinating talking to you, Rakib. That's Dr. Rakib Ehsan, who's a political commentator. Thank you for that. Dave is in Southend. Dave, what do you think about the fact that black people only are invited to these unity swimming lessons?
Well, Mr. Cardwell, firstly, as for Dr. Rakib, I find that man an absolute credit to our society.
He's great, isn't he? He's very interesting opinions.
Yeah, every time you see this man, he gives you hope, because we are surrounded by madness. This is nothing short of 0.02% of the population telling the 99% how to run our lives. We need to stop this by ganging together and saying we will not conform to this madness. Us whites, blacks, Asians need to boycott that swimming pool and say we're not going to use it unless we can use it together. And this goes on throughout everything in life, Mr. Cardwell. We need to push back. We cannot keep moaning if we don't fight back.
But they're saying that black students need to have... They're saying black students at the University of Leicester, with capital B, need to have an opportunity to develop a valuable life-saving skill in a safe and inclusive environment. I wonder, Dave, why is it unsafe if people of other races are there? And also, how can you call something inclusive if you're excluding other people?
Mr. Cardwell, throughout my life, I'm very old. I've worked for companies like London Transport, where ethnicity was the company. You had every ethnicity throughout the world working for that company. And we all got on very well. We joked with each other. We all said things to each other. No one took offence. No one. I believe, and I truly believe this may be controversial to you, but I believe, technically, I don't think there is really that much racism in the country. I think it's been predominantly pushed on us by that small element I'm telling you about. But if
do you know what, Dave? I agree with you. I don't think Britain's a racist country. I don't think we're full of racists. I don't think everybody's racist. I think there is a paranoia about it. I think there are some racists. I think there are people we should call out. I think they do exist, and we should do everything we can to tell people that that's not acceptable, and the law should be involved at certain times. But this kind of thing that, microaggressions, that everybody's a bit racist, that, everybody is racist in some way, that people are racist. Some people say all white people are racist, for example. It's just nonsense. It's absolute nonsense, Dave. And this kind of stuff, where you have a swimming lessons only for black people at a university, it just enhances that identity politics. It says to people, you are different, and what you were born with, something that you can't change, is how you should be viewed. And it's the same with Kemi Badenoch being leader of the Conservative Party. Oh, you're a black woman, therefore you must think this. Well, no, we have this thing called critical judgment, where we make decisions based on our mind, not on the colour of our skin or how we were born.
The problem is, Mr. Cardwell, these people are beginning to turn us against each other.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. Yeah. We are being pushed to turn against us. Did anyone speak to the black community or Asian community about this stupid...
Well, they're saying that this was asked for by black students. But listen, Dave, I want to ask you one more thing just before you go. If you ring me again, will you call me Peter?
Well, I've come from that society of when respect. Well, and I respect people like you, Mr. Graham this morning, Mr. O'Sullivan, etc.
Okay. Well, that's very kind.
Do great work for us, and whatever money you get, you deserve, just like the rest of us trying to get as much money as your millions.
No millions for me, but listen, thank you very much.